Welcome back to Crime Chronicles. Imagine staring into a mirror, but the reflection staring back at you isn't your own. What if that figure wasn't just a trick of the light, but something far darker? Tonight, we dive into a chilling true crime story where a young woman's reality was shattered by a presence that lived inside her mirror, haunting, stalking, and ultimately vanishing her without a trace. Prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear will make you think twice before ever looking into glass again. This is The Man in the Mirror. Before we start this story, please subscribe so you don't miss the surprising twists coming up. There's something chilling about a story that begins with an ordinary night and ends in unimaginable terror. Tonight, we unravel the haunting tale of a woman whose routine evening took a turn for the worst. This is the story of Emily Carter and the night she vanished. Emily Carter was a 29-year-old aspiring artist living in a small, quiet town in Colorado. Known for her bright smile and adventurous spirit, Emily was beloved by her friends and neighbors. On October 13, 2019, she attended a local art exhibit. Little did she know, it would be the last time anyone would see her alive. That night, Emily left the exhibit around PM. Security footage captured her walking to her car in the parking lot. She appeared calm, even waving at someone off camera. But within minutes, she disappeared without a trace. When we arrived at the scene, her car was still there, keys in the ignition. It was as if she'd been plucked out of thin air. Investigators searched the area but found no signs of a struggle. Then, a week later, a cryptic message was discovered in the forest nearby. It was written on a piece of canvas, Emily's canvas, and it read, "She's closer than you think. What happened to Emily? Who left that message? And why?" As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a web of secrets that shook the entire town. Emily's best friend, Sarah, revealed that Emily had been receiving disturbing anonymous letters for months. The letters hinted that someone was watching her every move. But Sarah never told anyone because Emily insisted it was nothing. She'd laugh it off, saying it was just some harmless prank. But now, I can't help but think, what if it wasn't? Despite extensive searches, no trace of Emily's body has ever been found. Some believe she was taken by someone she knew. Others think it was a random act of violence. And then there are those who say, the forest holds secrets we're not meant to uncover. As weeks turned into months, the town was gripped by fear. Parents wouldn't let their children play outside, and every stranger was viewed with suspicion. Then, another chilling discovery was made. In a remote cabin deep within the forest, police found a hidden room. Inside were dozens of Emily's paintings. Some were unfinished, others slashed as if in rage. But the most haunting piece was a self-portrait of Emily, with the words, "They'll never find me," scrawled across the bottom. Whoever left that painting wanted to send a message. But what did it mean? Investigators examined the room for clues and discovered fingerprints that didn't match Emily's. DNA analysis pointed to a local handyman who'd worked for Emily in the past. But when police went to question him, he had vanished. It was as if he knew we were coming. We found his truck abandoned near the state line, but no sign of him since. The case of Emily Carter remains one of the most baffling mysteries in Colorado's history. Was she taken by someone she trusted? Was the handyman involved? Or is there something more sinister at play, lurking in the shadows of that forest? In 2021, 2 years after Emily's disappearance, hikers discovered a backpack deep within the forest. It contained Emily's sketchbook, and inside were chilling illustrations, images of a shadowy figure watching her, a hand reaching out from the darkness, and a detailed map of the forest with an X marked at a secluded spot. This discovery reignited the investigation, leading detectives to the marked location. What they found there added another layer of mystery to this already bizarre case. Buried at the spot was a metal box containing more of Emily's artwork, along with a torn piece of fabric believed to be from the outfit she wore the night she vanished. But no further evidence was found. The items found were intriguing, but didn't bring us closer to finding Emily or identifying her abductor. It's as if someone is playing a twisted game, leaving breadcrumbs but never the full story. Could the person responsible for Emily's disappearance be deliberately toying with the investigators? Or was Emily herself leaving clues, knowing she might not escape her fate? As the investigation continued, more theories emerged. Some claimed the forest itself was cursed, citing a history of other disappearances in the area. Others believed a secret cult operated in the shadows, targeting individuals for reasons unknown. Over the past decade, at least 5 other people have vanished near the same forest. All cases remain unsolved. Could there be a connection? One of the most disturbing connections was a diary entry from another victim, discovered years after her disappearance. It mentioned hearing whispers in the woods and seeing a shadowy figure watching her. The parallels to Emily's case are eerie and undeniable. If you have any theories, connections, or even the faintest idea of what might have happened, let us know in the comments. Some secrets are buried so deep, they're never meant to be uncovered. We tell the story of Jason Matthews, a man whose curiosity led him to uncover a nightmare lurking right beneath his feet. Jason Matthews was a man of intellect and reason, a history professor who had dedicated his life to studying the past. So, when he decided to leave behind the bustling city life of Manhattan for a quieter existence in upstate New York, he thought he'd found the perfect sanctuary. The house he purchased was old, built in the late 1800s, with a character that seemed to whisper tales of generations past. But Jason soon realized that some of the house's stories were darker than he could ever have imagined. The house had charm, yes, but it also had something else, a feeling of being watched, of something just out of reach, lurking in the corners. From the moment Jason moved in, he noticed strange things. The house seemed alive, groaning and creaking as though it were adjusting to his presence. But there was one area that troubled him more than the others: the basement. The basement, despite its age and disrepair, seemed almost too perfect a place of forgotten history, hidden behind thick wooden doors. Jason ignored the creeping sensation at first. After all, he was a man of logic, of reason. But then, the noises started. For weeks, Jason dismissed the unsettling sounds. Faint whispers, muffled thuds, the sound of something moving, or someone. At night, as the wind howled outside, Jason would lie awake, trying to convince himself it was just the house settling. But then the crying began. Neighbor, he never mentioned it to me directly, but one day, Jason came by and said something about hearing whispers coming from the basement. He joked about it being a ghost or the house being haunted. But there was something in his voice, something in the way he said it, that told me he wasn't joking. He was scared, and I think he knew something was wrong. Jason's dog, Max, had always been a brave animal. But one evening, as Jason descended the basement stairs, Max suddenly stopped at the top, his body rigid. He growled low, then began barking wildly, as if sensing something unnatural behind the door. Max refused to move any closer. His instincts were warning him, and Jason could no longer ignore it. Curiosity eventually overcame Jason's fear. Armed with only a flashlight and his dog by his side, he made his way down the creaky stairs one fateful night. What Jason would find behind that basement door would shatter everything he thought he knew about safety, about home. The basement was cold, unnaturally cold. The air felt thick, heavy, as though the space had been holding its breath for years. Jason's flashlight flickered as he scanned the room, the beam trembling slightly in his grip. Then he saw it. A small, inconspicuous door, half hidden behind a stack of old crates. This door, it wasn't part of the house's original layout. It looked like it had been concealed deliberately, almost as if someone didn't want it to be found. Jason, heart pounding, pushed aside the crates and slowly opened the door. What Jason discovered in that room would forever haunt his mind. The walls were covered in hundreds of photographs, each one telling a story, a dark story. Faces of people Jason had never seen before. Some appeared to be recent, others from decades ago. But it was the photographs of Jason himself, scattered among them, that chilled him to his core. They were taken inside his own home, often in rooms he had never entered, during moments he had never known someone was watching. When we arrived, the first thing that hit us was the sheer number of photographs. But what was more disturbing were the tapes we found. These weren't just photos. These were moments frozen in time, captured from hidden cameras. And some of those cameras were still operational. The discovery of the hidden cameras was just the beginning. The investigation revealed that these photographs were only part of a far darker reality. Dozens of videotapes had been secretly documenting the lives of everyone who had ever lived in the house. Each tape told a story of gradual isolation, of creeping fear, and, in some cases, the complete disappearance of the residents. The tapes were difficult to watch. The residents were filmed at their most vulnerable, unaware they were being watched. Over time, they became paranoid, agitated, and terrified. Some even mentioned hearing noises, seeing shadows in the corners of their rooms. And then, one by one, they disappeared. No one ever heard from them again. As the investigation deepened, a terrifying theory emerged. Beneath the house, a labyrinth of long-forgotten tunnels sprawled out, connecting not just the house to other properties, but to the entire neighborhood. Someone had been using these tunnels to live beneath the radar, coming and going as they pleased, unseen, undetected. The stalker had been living in the shadows, controlling the fate of every person who lived in that house despite extensive searches. No trace of the person responsible for the photos, the tapes, or the disappearances was ever found. The secret passageways, the hidden rooms, and the elaborate network of tunnels only deepened the mystery. But what happened to the stalker? And who were they? That's a question that remains unanswered. Jason Matthews. I never went back. I couldn't. I don't know who or what was living there before me. But I know one thing. I wasn't supposed to find that room. I'm haunted by the thought that, even now, whoever was responsible for those photographs might still be out there, watching. And so, the mystery of the shadow in the basement remains unsolved. Jason Matthews is gone from that house, but the chilling presence that stalked him still lingers, hidden in the shadows. And somewhere, deep beneath the earth, the tunnels remain, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover their secrets. Public transportation is meant to be a bridge between lives, a way to get from one place to another. For millions, it's a daily ritual, but for one young woman, it became the entryway to something much darker. This is the story of Maria Lopez and the silent passenger who turned her routine ride into a nightmare. Maria Lopez, a 24-year-old college student from Chicago, had one simple goal every night: to get home after a long shift at the diner where she worked. The late-night train was her lifeline, a familiar rhythm of metal on track, the occasional commuter, and the distant murmur of the city. She had done this countless times before, but one night, everything changed. It was December 2015. Maria boarded the 12:30 a.m. train, just like she had on so many nights. The car was almost empty, save for one passenger, a man, sitting at the far end. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He simply stared at something that only he could see, something that made Maria uneasy. Friend, Maria texted me that night, just a quick message saying there was this guy on the train who was giving her the creeps. I didn't think much of it at first, but when she said he wasn't looking at her, just staring into space, something didn't feel right. She said he was different. I could tell she was nervous, but she tried to brush it off. She said she felt safe, but something in her voice told me she didn't feel that way at all. As the train rattled along, the unease grew. Maria tried to distract herself, focusing on her phone, glancing out the window, but she couldn't shake the sensation that the man was watching her. She caught him staring at her reflection in the glass, his eyes vacant, unblinking. She had no proof, no way to explain it, but she felt it in her bones. This wasn't normal. Conductor, I've seen people act strange on late-night trains. Some are drunk, others are just lost in their thoughts. But there's something about the way she described this guy, something off. I've worked those hours for years, and I've never had anyone mention a passenger like that. It's like he didn't even exist. As the train made Maria stop, something happened that would haunt her forever. The man stood up, his movements slow and deliberate, like he was savoring each step. Maria froze, unable to move, her mind racing. She quickly glanced toward the door, but it was too late. He was already walking toward her. Friend, Maria started texting me again. She said the man was getting closer, and she had this sinking feeling in her stomach. She said his steps were too slow, too purposeful, like he was stalking her. I told her to get off the train, but it was too late. She was already on her way to the exit. Maria bolted off the train as soon as it stopped. But when she reached the exit, her nightmare truly began. The man wasn't far behind. His steps were measured and calm, too calm for a stranger who should have been far behind. Maria's heart pounded as she quickly pulled out her phone, whispering to her friend on the line, pleading for help. Friend, I kept her on the phone. She was whispering so low I could barely hear her, but I could tell something was wrong. She said she could hear footsteps right behind her. I asked if she could see anyone, but she said the streets were empty. The whole area was empty, except for her and him. Security footage from the station showed the strange events in full detail. Maria moved swiftly toward the exit, but the man, always at a distance, followed her. However, when the footage was reviewed further, something chilling emerged. The man had never boarded the train. He simply appeared out of nowhere, as if he had been waiting, watching. We found the footage of Maria walking down the platform. We watched it multiple times, trying to make sense of what happened. The man, he wasn't seen entering the station or getting on the train. He seemed to just materialize. It was like he had been waiting for her, or like he had always been there, just out of sight, despite exhaustive searches and interviews with other passengers. No one could confirm the man's identity. No one else on the train had noticed him. The police investigation turned up nothing, no fingerprints, no clues, no evidence that anyone else had even seen him. It was as if he had never existed. Maria, despite the lack of concrete evidence, was convinced of one thing: the man was real, and he meant her harm. The terror that night was enough to make her change everything. She never took the train again. But what if it wasn't just fear? What if Maria had seen something no one else could? Over the years, other commuters began to tell their own stories. Similar encounters, similar figures. The silent passenger, appearing on late-night trains, always sitting at the far end of the car, watching, never moving. Each encounter ends the same mysterious disappearance. No trace left behind. Who was he? What did he want? And why was he always there when no one else was? I saw him once too. I was on the late-night train, the one that goes through the quieter parts of the city. There was no one else in the car. I didn't notice him at first, but when I did, it was like he was watching me. I got off at the next stop, and he didn't follow. But when I looked back, he was just standing there, watching me go. And then he was gone. I never saw him leave the station. Who is the silent train passenger? A trick of the mind, a figure born of collective fear, or something more sinister, something that can slip between the cracks of the mundane and into the shadows where we least expect it. The next time you find yourself alone on a late-night train, take a look around. You might not be as alone as you think. Mirrors are supposed to reflect our reality, a simple surface that shows us who we are. But sometimes the reflection isn't what it seems. This is the chilling story of the Mirror Man, a figure who used reflections to haunt his victims, leaving them trapped between what they saw and what was real. Lauren Harris was a young woman living in a quiet neighborhood in Boston. She was a freelance writer, working from home, surrounded by her books and art. Life was simple until she inherited an old mirror from her grandmother, a beautiful antique with a history that would soon intertwine with her own. The mirror was a family heirloom, passed down through generations. Lauren, intrigued by its intricate design and history, placed it in her living room. It was just another addition to her cozy apartment, or so she thought. But soon, things began to change. Friend. At first, it was just little things. Lauren mentioned the mirror once or twice, how she felt like it was watching her. I thought she was just being dramatic. But then she told me about the reflection, how sometimes when she looked into it, she saw someone else standing behind her. She said it wasn't her own reflection, but a man she did recognize. At first, Lauren dismissed it. She chalked it up to fatigue, or maybe just a trick of the light. But the occurrences became more frequent. The man in the reflection was always there, standing behind her, staring at her with cold, empty eyes. Every time she turned, he was gone, but the reflection remained. Lauren, I thought I was going crazy. I started checking the mirror every time I passed by it. I even moved it, just to see if something was off with the placement. But it didn't matter where I put it, the man always appeared, always in the reflection, standing behind me. And the worst part, sometimes I felt like I couldn't look away, like something was drawing me to him. As Lauren's obsession with the mirror grew, so did her fear. She couldn't shake the feeling that the man wasn't just a figment of her imagination. He was real, and he was watching her, waiting. Her nights were filled with restless sleep, each dream filled with the eerie presence of the figure in the mirror. When Lauren contacted us, she was terrified. She said the man in the mirror started speaking to her, whispering her name, telling her to join him. But when we investigated the mirror, there was nothing unusual about it. No one else reported seeing anything. It was just a reflection. But Lauren swore it was something more. One evening, the mirror showed Lauren something she could never forget. The figure in the reflection wasn't just standing anymore, he was smiling, a grotesque, unnatural grin. His eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, Lauren realized the truth. The man in the mirror wasn't merely a reflection, he was something else. Something that didn't belong. Friend. She told me he started speaking to her, telling her she was the next. She thought he was going to come out of the mirror and get her. I didn't know what to believe. I just kept thinking, this isn't real. This can't be happening. But Lauren was convinced, despite efforts to investigate. No physical evidence was found to explain what Lauren was experiencing. The mirror itself was ordinary, with no sign of tampering. But the more Lauren tried to escape its pull, the stronger it seemed to become. The figure in the reflection would appear at odd hours, whispering her name, tormenting her in ways no one could explain. Resident. I heard rumors about that mirror. People said it had been in the family for generations, but no one knew what had happened to the ones who had owned it before Lauren's grandmother. People would always talk about strange occurrences, but no one would say too much. It's like there was some sort of curse attached to it. I always thought it was just stories, but hearing about Lauren, I'm not so sure anymore. Lauren's terror reached its peak when she could no longer stand the thought of being near the mirror. She moved out of the apartment, leaving behind her belongings and the mirror. But even then, she couldn't escape it. Friends and family reported that she would wake in the middle of the night, screaming, saying the man had followed her. There's something unsettling about certain objects, particularly mirrors. They've been associated with reflections of the soul, the crossing of boundaries between the physical world and something darker. It's possible that Lauren's mirror was cursed, or that it was an object of dark energy, drawing something malevolent from beyond. Mirrors have long been tied to folklore, with many cultures believing they hold the ability to trap souls or open doorways to other realms. If this entity was indeed attached to the mirror, it could have latched onto Lauren's vulnerability, manipulating her sense of reality. Though Lauren tried therapy, she could never fully escape the grip of the mirror man. She was haunted by his presence, even when she wasn't near the mirror. The whispers continued in her dreams. In the silence of her apartment, the man would appear in the windows of buildings she passed, in the glass of storefronts. Was he following her, or was she simply unable to escape the haunting reflection? To this day, no one knows who the mirror man truly was. Some believe he was a figment of Lauren's deteriorating mind, a result of fear and stress. Others say he was something much darker, an entity linked to the mirror itself. But one thing is certain, the terror Lauren experienced was real. And somewhere, perhaps in the reflection of an old, forgotten mirror, the mirror man waits for his next victim. What if I told you that the mirror you look into every day could hide more than just your reflection? What if something or someone was waiting inside it, watching you, ready to cross into your world? This is the horrifying story of a young woman whose life was shattered by a figure that didn't belong in her mirror, but was somehow always there. A man who wasn't just a reflection, but a presence that stalked her, haunted her, and might have taken her forever. Stay with me as we unravel the man in the mirror, because this story is so terrifying, you might never look at your reflection the same way again. What do you think about these shocking stories? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. For more stories like this. For more stories like this.